Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to, it's our third special day of preparatory meditation. There'll be quite a few things in the chat box for you related to tomorrow's astrological pre-full moon and the 2 years exact moment full moon broadcast, which will be at 5:40 p.m. on the 5th, I believe. Friday the 5th, and then we will continue. And also, for those of you who are in the Esoteric United Nations, we'll be sending you the time when that will occur. There's so much going on right now. Gemini is such a busy sign, and there are 5 distinct parts to Hercules' labor in Gemini. So it's a very busy Gemini week. We'll continue. We started tonight with the sacred pentagram work, and tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. GMT, it will continue. It will not, I don't think we'll have that on the day of the full moon itself. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we will have it, and we'll see about the Esoteric United Nations, whether it's better to have that on Sunday or Monday, and we'll be letting you know. We are all very busy at this time. Well, okay, so far we have dealt with keynotes that precede the Gemini full moon, and the keynote of love was the first, and the keynote of resurrection was the second, and this evening we'll be working with contact. For some of us, it is already the fourth, which is the right day to be doing this, and for some of us it's still the third. There's no way to balance that out, so the key basically is just to understand what these terms mean and to participate in them. So let's work here on this third day of preparation. And we'll begin by trying to realize that we are the soul in incarnation. And we have these personality instruments from which we gradually detach ourselves. So we recognize them as instruments and not as ourselves. The etheric physical vehicle, we detach, meaning we are something other. The astral sentient vehicle, we detach. We have to find that essence which we are, which is not the same as that vehicle. And from the lower mind, we detach. It is filled with many thoughts and cogitations and attempts to reason our way into the light, but we substand that vehicle. We are substantial to it. We understand it. And this takes us into the world of the soul, into that world of light, love, and spiritual sacrificial will. But when it comes to the vehicle of the consciousness on the higher mental plane, we are still substantial, still substantial to it. And this is really true even of the spiritual triad. Yes, that's quite an amazing fact that we are substantial to that. I just realized, excuse me for a minute, I failed to send out some links, and of course, that won't help the people that try to get in, will it? Such as my wife. So I bring that forward. Now, we try to reach out towards the men and women of goodwill. And we merge with them in the state of soul as much as possible. What that feels like to you, well, that's up to you. What does it feel like when you are merging with the men and women of goodwill? What does it feel like when you merge in soul with the members of the new group of world servers? Try to do that. It's not an issue of form at all. It's an issue of consciousness and of being. And really, all of humanity, it doesn't make any difference whether we like or dislike or are attracted or repelled. There's some deeper level of identification which allows us finally to say and to mean it, naught is but me. A great second-ray mantram, naught is but me. Now the heart should be open when we try to make that real for ourselves. So all human beings, some 7+ billion in incarnation, and probably a lot more out of incarnation. Naught is but me. And that goes for the kingdoms of nature, lower and higher. We have to get a sense of expanding our identity. It's a very different way of looking at others and looking at ourselves, and it leads, or even is, initiate consciousness. We're not accustomed to it, but we have to become more and more accustomed to it. There is no my soul or thy soul. There is simply the one soul. We have to go beyond thinking of those words as merely words. Naught is but me. And it's in the higher reaches of our nature where this is perpetually realized. The masters realize this all the time. And that's why they're able to carry forward their work in a state of deep identification. Maybe you've noticed those moments when Master DK, for instance, seems that he is identifying with us, as us. And of course, the Christ is, for our planet, the great expert in the art of identification. As we ascend via the Antakarana, built up over many years, many lifetimes really, first comes soul contact, and then the contact of the higher mind with the abstract mind, and then we're given such an exercise as Master DK has given us, the projection from the retained energies around the mental unit as high and deep as we can into the spiritual triad. We're not going to succeed at that entirely. It's a huge task. The multicolored rainbow bridge connects our emotional vehicle with the Buddhic vehicle, which is only for people like us in process of being preliminarily organized. And the bridge will pass through these retained energies on the highest level of the lower mental plane, around the mental unit. All the energies of the soul are drawn into that pool of retained energies. And provide a kind of springboard for us to attempt to enter through the act of projection, the cosmic ethers, the higher aspects of the spiritual triad. It takes years, and if we don't begin, it's like the person that doesn't cross the river because he or she is waiting for it to run by before the crossing. That won't get anywhere. So we're going to use the second ray word of power, I see the greatest light. We'll sound the Om 3 times, but inwardly, as we watch imaginatively the line of white light pass upward through the largely indigo-colored Antakarana, we will inwardly say, I see the greatest light, as outwardly we sound the Om. So this is projection. For us, the greatest light is the light of Shambhala, or what's called there unfettered enlightenment, unrestrained enlightenment. And we touch into the cosmic ethers, and an evocation occurs, a going forth to meet the ascending line of energy. Ultimately, the Father runs forth to greet the prodigal son, projected back to the place where he left long ago on his pilgrimage. I see the greatest light. So every day we try to be sensitive to an increase of the light coming forth from the first cosmically principled level, the cosmic ethers, where all of our real spiritual progress is occurring as real initiates and not simply initiates of the threshold. And here in this place, the masters have their focus. So let us, one after another, salute them, express our cooperation, express our receptivity. We'll begin with an Om and end the whole series with an Om. Salutations to the Lord Buddha, the Lord of Light and Wisdom. Salutations to the Christ, the teacher alike of angels and of men. Salutations to the Master M, the head of all esoteric schools and organizations. Salutations to the Master Kutumi, the coming Bodhisattva of the age of Capricorn. Salutations to the Master DK, who has given us the blue books and trains so many disciples so that they may become initiates. Salutations to your own master as you know him to be or conceive him to be. And salutations to the entire spiritual hierarchy, now on the verge of graded externalization. Our ever more intimate relationship with hierarchy is required, and one of the processes to which the Christ is most attentive is establishing a closer relationship with humanity, even as Shambhala is establishing an ever closer relationship to hierarchy. So he will teach that when he again appears. We do not know the time. But probably the age of Aquarius will have begun. And it does begin in really just 97 years from now. So we are preparing for this festival of humanity, this festival of the Christ, the festival of goodwill, sometimes called the ASALA festival in the East. Maybe it doesn't make any difference what it's called, as long as the spirit of goodwill fills us, leading eventually to our ability to handle the will to good and the general upgrading of our sensitivity, so required if we are to recognize the universality of the age of Aquarius. How universal is our consciousness at this time? How inclusive? And the way we do this, the way we really help the divine plan, and the way we really help hierarchy in its process of externalization, we attend to the energies of the Buddha and the Christ, which again, just as in Wesak, are very prominent now, as the Christ stands before all of hierarchy, representing all of humanity, especially human aspiration, and offers that up to Shambhala, where the Buddha resides. The Buddha will be very helpful also in the externalization of the hierarchy, Master DK tells us. And these two great teachers will work very hard during the Aquarian Age together. The Buddha as part of the triangle surrounding the Christ, along with the avatar of synthesis and the spirit of peace. Those are words to us. The spirit of equilibrium, the spirit of synthesis, we might say. And we have to fight our way through all these obstacles thrown up by the forces of impediment, the forces of opposition. And even now it is occurring. So they are two brothers, and the Castor and Pollux of Gemini suggest who they are. Pollux is a single supergiant star, and Castor is really 6 stars, three pairs of 2. You can see the division of 1 and 6 makes 7. They are the brothers in the light. the teacher of the Eastern Hemisphere and the teacher of the Western Hemisphere. And we try to realize how closely they cooperate for the welfare of the planet and of humanity and the various kingdoms. We're working towards the day of the full moon when we're told that the Christ, out of deep respect for the Buddha and realizing the foundational nature of his work, preaches before the assembled hierarchy the last sermon of the Buddha. And so as we move toward a greater presentation of that last sermon, there are certain sentences and phrases we can concentrate on. We've concentrated on freedom from the grief of bodily cravings, freedom from the grief of sensation, and today another type of freedom from grief. And so, as the Buddha is speaking to his closest disciple Ananda, and so also when he thinks or reasons or feels, let him so regard his thought that being strenuous, thoughtful, and mindful, he may, whilst in the world, overcome the grief which arises from the craving due to ideas or to reasoning or to feeling. And so when he thinks or reasons, this is the Buddha's advice. And with his Ray One personality, he certainly is strenuous. Let him so regard his thought that, being strenuous, thoughtful, and mindful, he may, whilst in the world, overcome the grief which arises from the craving due to ideas, or to reasoning, or to feeling. This word craving is so important because it signals the incompleteness of the disciple when deeply and essentially, and in terms of being, the disciple is complete, in essence at least. So when we are filled with desire and craving, we are in a state of imbalance and we do not realize our true essence. Let us affirm in ourselves the fact that we can be strenuous and thoughtful and mindful in overcoming the grief which arises from the craving due to ideas or to reasoning or to feeling. Let us resolve to be so. We'll ponder on this a little. We're always reaching for something, it seems, but the perfect essence exists within us as us. It's hard to identify that way, but is the true inner being. And so we have a profound gratitude to the Buddha. He enunciated the principles of accepted discipleship, and he was surrounded by students who were arhats or on the verge of it. He taught some very high souls. The arhat is noble in his spirituality. Our gratitude extends to the Buddha, and for many centuries to come, he will be with us, aiding in the externalization, the Master DK tells us, and certainly fortifying the Christ for his stupendous subjective and objective task. And then we switch to a consideration of the great Lord, the head of hierarchy, and we're told that on these days he sounds the great invocation alone first. So let us imagine that we hear him sounding the great invocation. The language doesn't make any difference. He will be using a different language or an ideographic language, perhaps, but we can use our own language as we imagine that he is sounding before the assembled hierarchy and in sight of the Buddha and Shambhala, the great invocation. So let us imagine. And further, again, listening inwardly with great care, we imagine the Christ and the entire hierarchy, intoning the third stanza of the great invocation. And it is here before us about the will. And we contemplate the deep significance of these words, imagining the will of God pervading humanity and the planet, seeing the human race empowered by the will to good, expressing goodwill, and our planet perhaps beginning to express its monad of will and power, which lies behind its great second-ray soul. So we contemplate the significance of this third verse in the most recently given great invocation. So this is the third and last of the specific keynote meditations. And our word for today is contact. And he describes it as follows. The keynote of contact, of a closer relation between Christ and his people, between hierarchy and humanity. The keynote of contact, of a closer relation between Christ and his people, between the hierarchy and humanity. And this is not dependent on following any particular type of religious dogma. It has to do with love and wisdom and service. The Christ, the true server. The Aquarian server and the Piscean savior. So we envision that we and all human beings will come into ever closer relation with the Christ and his hierarchy. And we imagine what the reality of this contact will bring in terms of the expression of the will to good upon our planet. This is what we will ponder now for some moments, envisioning that we and all human beings will come into ever closer relation with the Christ and his hierarchy. We imagine what the reality of the contact will bring in terms of the expression of the will to good upon our planet. And we open ourselves continuously to the impression from the Christ and attempt to feel deeply that that contact is increasingly a fact. And as a matter of fact, it exists on the planes of soul and spiritual triad. We are heading for the actual full moon itself, which is 7 p.m. and 12 minutes, 14 seconds on Friday. So let's work to make as real as possible these 3 keynotes: love, resurrection, contact. Very deep issues, and we'll grow into them and express them the best we can. So we affirm our solidarity with the Buddha, the Christ, and the assembled hierarchy. And we seek to identify with them and to merge our purpose with their purpose, which is as much of the purpose of Shambhala as they can grasp. Underneath all that we do, this is our purpose: to bring forward the purpose as plan. Bring it forth into the lower worlds. We're still a long way from it, but we can increase our effectiveness. So with them we bless the world, with the Christ and the Buddha and the Christ. We bless the world, bless humanity of the lower kingdoms, send gratitude to the higher kingdoms. And we pause for a moment here, a moment of appreciation for the illumined, loving energies of the constellation Gemini. And feel ourselves imbued with these energies, which are growing in strength as the full moon approaches. Then, as if in union with the Christ, the hierarchy, and all the disciples in the world, and with the superintending Buddha, we sound together the 3rd stanza, or rather, let's call it a verse, third verse of the third great invocation, sensing that it is the will of God, our planetary logos, that Shambhala, the Christ, hierarchy, and humanity may come into true and real contact, and may therefore thereby cooperate in the redemption of our planet. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men. The purpose which the masters know and serve. So let's keep building towards the full moon. Tomorrow at the same time, we will have our pre-full moon, largely astrologically based. Check in the chat box for the link. And a bit earlier, 6 p.m. GMT, we will have the second sacred pentagram meditation. And then on Friday, the actual broadcast of the full moon at 5:40 p.m. GMT. So I want to thank you for being here. Let these keynotes build in your consciousness. Carry them with you no matter what you're doing. See if you can express some measure of them. Do your best to make them real in expression and of benefit to others. And we'll let you know when if you are a member of the Esoteric United Nations group, we'll let you know when that is. And if you want to join, you'll let Tuya and me know, and we can see that you can join. Reviewing the various nations of the world from the point of view of the evocation of their soul quality. So lots of love and many blessings from both of us and from the communications team, and I would say from the faculty of the Moria Federation also. We'll be seeing you soon. Bye-bye.